In this video number 13, we will discuss movement and shift in the demand curve. So far in the previous videos, we learnt about the law of demand, which says that there is an inverse relationship between the price and the quantity demanded for a commodity. So as the price goes up, the quantity demanded falls, and when the price falls, the quantity demanded increases. Now here we are going to learn movement along the demand curve. Along the demand curve would mean that we are just moving up and down the demand curve. That means we move from point D1 to D2 or from D2 to D1, right? So what is extension in demand? When quantity demanded increases due to fall in price of the commodity. So this suits the law of demand. So there is fall in price and so there is increase in the quantity demanded. So let's see over here. When the price falls from P to P1, when it falls from P to P1, the quantity demanded increases. So the corresponding point for P is Q over here. So this was the quantity. Now when the price falls to P1, the quantity increases to Q1. So there is an increase in the quantity when there is a fall in price. So this is called as extension in demand. In this case, we move down the demand from D1 to D2. We will move from D1 to D2 along the same demand curve. Now the second condition is contraction in demand. This happens when quantity demanded decreases due to rise in own price of the commodity. So when the price increases from P1 to P, the quantity demanded decreases from Q1 to Q. So what is happening? The quantity has decreased due to rise in price. This is called as contraction in demand. In that case, we move up from D2 to D1. So there is a movement upward. So contraction in demand, we move up the demand curve. And when there is extension in demand, we move down the demand curve. Therefore, this tells us when price increases, quantity demanded falls and we move to the left. When price falls, quantity demanded increases and we move to the right. This extension and contraction in demand is because of the change in the own price of the commodity, the rise or fall in the own price of the commodity. If change in price, own price of the commodity causes movement along the demand curve, we also have another situation called shift in demand curve, which is due to the change in other determinants of demand. Now in our previous videos we learned there are 5 determinants of demand, of an individual demand. The first one being the own price of the commodity, which causes contraction and expansion in the demand. Now the other determinants would cause a shift in the demand curve, which could be to the rightward or to the leftward. So what does other than own price of the commodity mean? It means that the price, own price of the commodity is kept constant. Let us list the other determinants of demand. The demand function says that the other determinants are price of the related goods, income of the consumer, tastes and preferences of the consumer, and the expected change in price of the commodity. This can cause a forward shift or a rightward shift and a backward shift or a leftward shift. Let's look at each determinant and see how the demand curve shifts. Let's first take price of the substitute goods, because related goods are substitute goods or complementary goods. There is a forward shift or a rightward shift when the price of the substitute goods increases. What are substitute goods? Those goods which can be substituted for each other, like tea and coffee. That was the example we learnt. Now, if the price of the commodity, let us say coffee, increases, if price of coffee increases, then what will happen? The demand for tea will also increase, because now coffee is expensive than tea. So we will increase the demand for tea, keeping the price of the tea constant. Now, in that case, what happens? There is a rightward shift. So the demand will increase. So for the same price, so we will move from Q1 to Q2. Now what happens when the price of coffee falls? The demand for tea will also fall. In that case, we will move to the left. There is a backward shift when there is a decrease in the price of the substitute good. Now let's talk about the price of complementary goods. What are complementary goods? The examples we learned are car and petrol. Let us say this is the demand for car, right? So when the price of the petrol falls, what will happen? We will buy more number of cars. So the demand for car will go up. So when the price of the complementary good, here petrol, decreases, there will be a rightward shift in the demand curve for cars. That means we will buy more number of cars. The reverse happens when the price of the complementary good, petrol over here, increases. When the price of petrol increases, people generally don't go for cars. That means that which run on petrol. So the demand curve will shift to the left because we are now buying lesser quantity of cars. The third determinant is income. What happens when the income of a consumer increases? When the income increases, the purchasing power also increases. So the demand moves to the right from D1 to D2. So quantity will increase from Q1 to Q2. On the other hand, when the income decreases, he will have less purchasing power and so he will buy less quantity of goods and move from D2 to D1. So here there will be a backward shift. With respect to income, we learned two types of goods, the normal goods and the inferior goods. So when the income increases, the demand for normal goods increases. In that case, we move from D1 to D2. And when the income falls, we move from D2 to D1. In that case, for normal goods, the demand would fall. What happens with the inferior goods? With increase in income, there will be a fall in the demand for the inferior goods. And with fall in income, there will be an increase in the demand for inferior goods. In that case, we will move from D1 to D2. This is what we need to remember because there is an inverse relationship between income and inferior goods. The fourth determinant is taste. When the taste is favorable, that means when there is fashion for goods, there is a custom, there will be an increase in the demand and so we will move from D1 to D2. That means there will be a rightward shift or a forward shift. If something is out of fashion, then what will happen? The demand will fall and we will move backward because the quantity demanded would reduce because we do not now favor the particular good. Now the fifth one is expectation of the price. If price is expected to reduce in future, in that case, the right moment, right now, the demand will fall. But in the future, the demand is going to increase. However, on the other hand, if we expect the prices to go up, now at the present moment, the demand will increase and will move from D1 to D2 because the quantity demanded at this point of time will increase, right? So there will be a backward shift. So movement along the demand curve is due to the own price of the commodity, whereas a shift in the demand curve is due to the other determinants of demand. Let's now try to solve a numerical. Given a linear demand curve, Q is equal to, this is a demand function, Q is equal to 10 minus 2P. Calculate the quantity demanded at P is equal to 1. It's a very straightforward, simple problem which often is asked as part of numerical from the lesson demand. Okay. So here we know the demand function is given as Q is equal to 10 minus 2P. We know the value of P which is equal to 1. At P is equal to 1, what is the quantity demanded? That is the question. So here we'll simply write the value of P over here, substitute it and then solve it. 10 minus 2 into 1, so which is equal to 2. So quantity demanded is 8. So here Q is equal to 8 units. right? So that is the solution for such problems. So when demand function is given, this is called demand function. When demand function is given to us, just substitute the values. In case Q is given to us, let's reverse it and say Q is 8 na. So we'll put 8 is equal to 10 minus 2p. Suppose Q is given. In that case, we have to find P. So let's substitute it over here and then solve it. So this comes, you rearrange it and you get 2p is equal to 10 minus 8. So rearrange it, bring it to the left and right, and so you get 10 minus 8 is equal to 2, and this is 2p, or p is equal to, this is a multiplication, so 2 by 2 equal to 1. So we again get back the same value. So in case Q is given, you do it like this. In case P is given, then you solve it this way. Okay.